Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another installment of the Intrinsic Intenders. Nah, because it's too high. See, it's too high there. Intrinsic Intenders. This is Hamza.
I'm David.
So what's up, you guys? I haven't seen you guys in a week, and we have a treat for you today. We have a call with Avery Alexander, and I can actually mention her name because in a couple of podcasts back, I mentioned the hypersleep, and she's the one that actually introduced me to hypersleep, and it was fantastic. I loved it. Anyone that I talked to, people off the street, strangers, and everything, I always mention hypersleep. So she is actually on the line with us right now, and we are going to talk about hypersleep, of course, but we have a lot of treats that we're going to share with you, starting with manipulating time and space. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce Avery. So, welcome to the call, Avery.
Hey, thank you for having me here. How's that a pleasure?
The pleasure is all mine. I mean,
It's
my
all
life
ours,
has
man.
changed. My life's changed tremendously since we had that. Since I've done that hypersleep.
You should pay her.
And I did the hypersleep last month before the new moon, and you said it's ideal to do that. But before we get into that, I'd like to tell everybody a little bit about Avery. Avery was introduced to us from a friend of ours, Tracy, who had a great event last week, and she's also a part of our Intenders group. And so, meeting her in the Intenders group, we were talking about time and if we were able to manipulate time and if we're able to sleep and not feel guilty about it. And we had mentioned that we were doing podcasts in the past. We were talking about the benefits of doing sleep and napping. And you, Avery, were talking about a hypersleep. So, for those that are unfamiliar with hypersleep, can you just give us a little intro about what hypersleep is?
Yeah, hypersleep is, it's like an internal experience where you go within and you sleep for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And from there, you're able to really access, your dream state on a higher frequency.
Okay. Now, you're talking 24 or 48 hours of sleep. I mean, most people aren't getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So how are you able to factor in 24 or 48 hours?
That's exactly right. A lot of us are sleep deprived, and we've denied our bodies the adequate amount of sleep. So when you do allow yourself and give yourself permission without feeling guilty to go into this hyper sleep mode, it's like your body begins to drink it up. It says, okay, I'm going to try to make up for all the sleep that I've missed throughout my whole life. And your body will get used to it real fast.
My personal experience, I did feel like I couldn't sleep that long. And then I think it was around hour 10 or 12, then I realized that I didn't really have that desire to actually get back up. My body was like, oh, okay, he is going to stay. He's still going to lay down, and we will take advantage of that.
Yes. I always say it's like, we always have, more than one consciousness. And a lot of us think that we're awake, we're conscious, but actually when you go into hypersleep, you're going to a different realm of consciousness. And to access that, opens you up to a whole new world and a whole new way of being.
Wow. All right.
A lot of us are taught, or you're lazy, if you sleep past 8 hours, you're wasting the day, you need to get up and do something. But actually, not doing anything and sleeping is actually doing something. You're communing with your inner state, you're communing with your soul, and you're getting downloaded with information that, your inner self, if you slow down just a little bit, will begin to give you more information on what that is and how that looks. So I've had people who've gone into hypersleep have told me that they've gotten new inspirations, they got some more direction on their purpose, they got some information on something new to create. So it just opens you up to a whole other way of being. It's an awesome experience. And I tell everyone that's out there listening, if you haven't tried it, it's definitely truly an experience to try at least once in your life.
How long have you been doing or using hypersleep?
sleeping in the mid 90s.
Wow.
Actually, I got introduced to it from a friend of mine who was very wealthy, who shared with me. He said, this is something that the wealthy people do all the time. Is sleep and hypersleep, because you become. So our bodies are like an electromagnetic body. Scientists have proved this. So when you hypersleep, you actually become magnetic. So people who are wealthy uses this technique to begin to draw the things that they're desiring to create in this world. Where people who are really not wealthy, they're busy running around, spending their energy on things. It's kind of like running around with like a chicken with your head cut off, but not really fully accomplishing everything that you want to. Well, hypersleep kind of helps you put you in the right place at the right time to make things that you want to create happen. And I just noticed my whole world shifted as I began to hypersleep. But the first thing I always share with people that you have to get over is the mind. The mind will begin to tell you, you need to get up, you need to do something. It'll begin to fight you because it's like the mind has to relinquish into the body. Yeah. And it doesn't want to do that.
So you said since the mid 90s that you've been doing it. How I imagine at this point in time, you've gotten to a place where you've learned how to deal with your mind. But are there any tips that you would have for someone who's just starting off and dealing with that that urge that you have to get up, you have to start doing something, and then this and that?
Well, normally, like what I had to do, because I was severely a type A personality, I was doing, multitasking, doing all these things, constantly overthinking, overanalyzing. I had to have, a coach, a hypersleep coach that was literally there. And every time I tried to get up and I found some excuse to get up, he said to me, go back to sleep. It's your mind tricking you. It's your mind tricking you, go back to sleep. So, you can be very successful with it if you have a hyper coach sleep. Someone who, for the first time, can kind of walk you through the process. I find people are more successful. But if you're someone who's really highly disciplined and, you tell yourself, I'm going to sleep now for 72 hours, you unplug your phone, you make yourself comfortable, you could push through it yourself. But it's almost like going through an initiation or going through like a sweat lodge or something for the first time.
Or like a fast or something.
Deal with some ground rules. And you kind of, when you go into a sweat lodge, you have a moderator, right? They kind of say, these are the ground rules for the sweat lodge to make this a success. Well, a hypersleep coach does the same thing. They're like a moderator, they give you the ground rules, and it's like you're committing to something. It's like when you enter into a sweat lodge, everyone commits to that. You're not leaving the sweat lodge until we complete everything that everyone came here to complete. Yeah. It's the same thing when you go in hypersleep. Because if you give up early, it's like, your mind is now conquered. It is now won, and the next time you try to do it again, it tends to rail up and become stronger.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You said you started in the mid-90s. So at this point in time, how often do you do it?
Ideally, it's best to do it at least once a month. I mean, if you just start out. But I mean, it's people who I know who do it once a week. Yeah. Like on a Sabbath day, from sundown on Friday until you go into Sunday.
Okay. What about you yourself? How often do you do it?
About once a month.
Once a month? Okay.
Well, once a month, and at the very latest, I've gone like once a quarter, like when the season changes, like when there's like when there's like a quarterly time, when there's like the solstice or equinox around that time.
And you'll do it for like 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours?
Oh, yeah, at least 24 to 72 hours.
At least 24 to 72 hours, okay.
And my favorite place to go through it is in Jamaica by the seaside.
Yeah. Of course. Instead of the concrete jungle, I'm sure. I do want to back up for a second, Avery, because for you, that's super analytical, and, I resonate with that totally. And, yes, lot of the type A's, and I think where people may actually fall short, and you can probably help me out here, is managing expectations. So there may be somebody that listens to the podcast and goes, "Oh, I'm going to do a hypersleep." Is there a way that you would actually prepare that you can get a better experience out of it, so you can kind of manage a person's expectation going in?
Well, again, we talked about the timing, right? So the ideal time is around a new moon. Or if you can't do it on a new moon, then, from sundown Friday to, the weekend or something like that. And, you have to make sure your room is dark because, of course, you're going to be sleeping through the sunlight. So you don't want the rays to wake you up or even have on what do you call those covers over your eyes that you put over your face, something like that. And you have to make sure you're very comfortable. Like the room, you might put some white noise on in the room. But again, we always suggest when we first do hypersleep, it's really better done when you have a hypersleep coach. Mm-hmm. So who can assist you, with whatever you have to go through.
So they would be there with you for the full 24 to 72 hours?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And normally what we would like to do, we are, in the next few months, we're putting together a hyper sleep, seminar, not a seminar, but it's like we're going to give you information. We're going to put together, we're six to eight people out in the woods in a nice cottage, and what we're going to do is have a hypersleep.
Wow.
And if you're interested, I would like to share information how you can get a hold of me so we can give you information how we're going to put that together.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I know you and I talked about that offline. But another thing as far as preparation, so we were having a conversation previously about ayahuasca retreat. So people go to Peru and other places around the world and experience that. And before people go, they are highly recommended to change their diet, I think, a week before you go. So there's no meat, there's no sugar, it's really a high plant-based diet. And the reason why they have you change that diet is they say you would get a better experience because of it, because there is a lot of purging that goes on. Would you also say that you would, to prepare, that you should change your diet before doing a hypersleep, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, what I usually do is tell people make sure, a few days before you're well hydrated. I mean, I've done hypersleep. I mean, I tell people, don't do it if you just had alcohol and you're binging all night. It's preferable if you're not under any type of substance. If you're not taking any sleeping pills to go to sleep, or you just want to go into your hypersleep as organic as possible, as natural as possible. I mean, of course, it is ideal if you're eating light fruit or eating a high plant-based diet. But I've done hypersleep after eating chicken and wings, a pizza. It's just how you train yourself to go in. But ideally, it is better if you're not. That you just got finished eating, like you're heavy with food in your stomach, because of course that can cause you not to have a really good sleep. But it is good to prepare your mind, what we call intentions. So we show you how to set your intentions before going into hypersleep. What do you want to get out of going into hypersleep? What are you trying to manifest? And so this is one of the things that we talk about as well, to get you prepared for it.
So how has it changed for you over the past 20 years from when you first started doing it to what your experience is now?
I also show people certain techniques if your body tries to wake you up or your mind tries to wake you up, how you can go right back into sleep. So I've gotten better at that. When I first did it, I really had to really talk to myself, talk to my mind. Okay, go back to sleep, go back to sleep, go back to sleep. And so finally I was able to just lay there and give into the sleep. But now I can just go straight through it. And just because, my mind trusts the process. Because sometimes the mind freaks out when it's under a new process. It's like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
How do I stay in control? And so when the mind knows that you're just going into hypersleep, it kind of just lets you go into it more. So that's been, a shift in what I've experienced over the years. But I must say, every hypersleep is different. It's like a new adventure. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
It's never the same. It's never the same. You're never going to have the same, experience. You're going to get different information. Sometimes I've had situations where my ancestors will come to me and give me information. I've had situations where I've gone to other dimensions or other galaxies. I've seen different colors that I've never seen before. So it heightens this life experience when you come out of it.
Yeah, heightens your awareness. How has it affected just your regular sleep? You're not doing just from day to day. How does it affect that, if at all?
Well, sometimes I've noticed after coming out of hypersleep, if I've gone through a full day, maybe that next night I may not be as tired, or I may not sleep as deep.
Yeah.
But I definitely can still go to sleep. So one thing I do notice that the quality of sleep, especially after like the second day of hypersleep, is very deep. It's almost like you've left your body. It's a very deep, somber sleep. It's like you keep going, you feel like yourself, like you're going into different levels of the restfulness. And one thing, every time I come out of a hypersleep, I feel very rested. My head seems clear. My body feels good. Like, there's so many benefits of hypersleep. It's just, I can't even name them all here.
Yeah.
It's just something to be truly experienced.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you can't name them all, so in many cases, there seems to be a difference because you have the argument of people that sleep, 5 to 8 hours a night, and they may argue that they can never remember their dreams, right? Where you're having such a vast experience during a hypersleep. Have you ever thought of keeping a journal to write down your experiences?
Yes, I do. I do have a sleep journal where I write down my experiences. That's one thing we do recommend as well. When we come to our hypersleep conference, have a journal. Because anyway, I would suggest people when you go to sleep at night to have a little journal and a pen next to your bedside anyway, because you might have a dream where you'll be given some information about something, because you're accessing different dimensions when you go to sleep. So a lot of some of your most creative people, like I mentioned Mozart and the guy who created the movie Lorenzo's Oil, they got all these breakthroughs while they were asleep. Mozart with his musical pieces and Lorenzo Oil, where the story where the father discovered the cure for his son. He got it downloaded to him in a dream. So I always tell people, don't look at sleep as just you're resting. You're actually traveling into different dimensions, and hypersleep, you're going into even deeper dimensions. So you want to be able to write that down and capture it. When you come out of it as best as possible. Write down as much detail about the dream as possible, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Because later on, it will be revealed or something may open up that will say, oh, it'll connect you back to the dream. So that's very important.
One thing that was really funny about sorry about that, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, so it's almost like having a prism, a prism where, light shines through it and the light becomes diffused, and you have all these different colors where, it's one light coming in and then a prism makes it diffuse into all the colors. You heard of a prism before, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like when you go into hypersleep, your energy becomes diffused, if that's another way of putting it. And you're able to experience the different dimensions of yourself. If you're going in deeper into what you call your subconscious level, and a lot of times your subconscious will try to work certain details out for you about your waking life. And all I can say is that you will get downloaded or get details about how to work on specific things depending on how you set your intentions through your hypersleep. Okay. Suppose you go to your bed. So suppose you're a warrior, you worry a lot. You go to your bed, you have these thoughts, you have these concerns that you're carrying into the sleep. Well, a lot of people will tell me after coming out of hypersleep that they've found the solution or they're less worried about that particular problem that they thought they had. It's not as severe, or they found a solution, or sometime maybe within that week, something has come to them that has given them the answer to what they were worried about. So it's very beneficial in that way. It's almost like, you're going, and tying into what we call time dimension. People was taught that time here is linear. So, you go 1, 2, 3, it's linear. But actually, time is not linear. It's multi-dimensional. And through observing what we call synchronicities, if we talk about the law of time, we observe synchronicities. Those are the things that will, measure time. It's not actually like a second or a passing something that's linear. It's actually the passing of synchronicities that dictate our time. So when you go into hypersleep, you're actually tapping into this multi-dimensional facet of yourself.
That's always fun. I like meeting my future self.
Being into this multi-dimensional being, which is awesome. So it makes you more productive. It makes you more creative. You're getting more. It's like having a Lamborghini, and now you have access to all the gears rather than just driving your whole life in first gear, thinking this is life. But when you're actually getting the hype, it's like, whoa, you got your Lamborghini now. You're like, oh my God, shifting up 6, 7 gears or whatever, and you're able to translate that now into your physical world.
Now that's interesting because you're talking about abundance and on a large scale. And when we were offline, we were talking about that old movie, I think it was 2011 with Justin Timberlake, about In Time. And in that movie, those that were poor, time was such a scarcity to them. I mean, they were running to get to the bus stop or they would die. Right? And those that were wealthy, they were hundreds of years old because they had time on their side. And so you're saying, it sounds like through hypersleep, you're able to manipulate that.
Exactly. And you're actually, because time is on your side. But of course, how we know, we really teach what we call the laws of the universe. So anyone who does come into our hypersleep seminar, we give you the information of the ground rules, which are what? Universal principles. And one of the the things we learned in Universal Principles is that you must have what you believe. So if you believe that time is against you, then it will show up that way. But if you believe and you can access the multi-dimensions that exist, then you will have access to them, having a much more abundant, much richer, much fulfilling life.
So for the 20 years, obviously you have a body of knowledge and experience. For someone that's done it once, well, let me back up for a second. So for those that are unfamiliar, we were talking about the best time to do it is during a new moon. What's the difference between a new moon and a full moon, and when does that happen? Does that happen once a year? Does that happen every day or once a month? What's the calendar for that?
Well, the new moon is every 28 days. That is the natural time. And, the full moon, happens, at the culmination of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the culmination of the moon, where you have different phases. Of the moon. The new moon is like new beginnings, right? And then you have, your quarter moon, your crescent moon, and then it goes all the way till it becomes a full moon. Well, there's specific time sequences where you're able to jump into certain frequencies to give you a better heightened experience.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is math, as they say. Everything is synchronized perfectly, but being in harmony with the synchronicities will make you more successful. For example, our government understands this very well. For instance, the day Tuesday is harmonized by the day of Mars. Mars is like a martial energy. Now, maybe getting a little bit too deep here, but I just want to give you an example. The day Mars is the Martian energy. Well, and at 12 noon is when the sun is at its highest pinnacle in the sky. That means the frequency is at the highest at that time. If you study back when they waged war with Iraq, it was on a Tuesday at 12 noon. So, when you understand it, you want the frequencies to work for you instead of against you. So it's all about understanding time, frequencies, and energy, and to know when's the best time to launch something. It's almost like if you had a business, you have a pre-launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your big launch, correct?
That's correct.
So you have to know when's the best time to do your launch to make it more successful. It's the same thing with hypersleep. So we say the new moon is the best time to go hypersleep. Because at that time, the energies are just in a phase of new beginnings, and you're actually going into a new beginning. You're going into a new experience. That's the best time to have it. Mm-hmm. And again, I do something called soul hunting, where we do it when the moon is full. And the reason why, it's even a scientific reason why we do it. Scientifically, when the moon is full, people who have parasites or things they're trying to fight, they always hatch during the full moon. So that's why people tend to act more crazy, more erratic. Their pain body shows up more around that time. So soul hunters, we want a person to re-experience their pain body, but with the aid of a helper. Using, animal totems and animal frequencies to go in to help you relive that situation and reclaim your soul from that pain body.
Now that's
So we just
interesting.
use that the best time to make you more successful in your endeavor.
That's interesting because I've always known, I think way back in high school, that police departments always overstaff when it's a full moon. There's going to be a lot of babies born and there's going to be more crime than usual.
Absolutely. Always. I mean, it's a scientific fact. Anyone can look it up and see when these people tend to act, their pain body patch the fastest and the best during the full moon. So we want to capture that time. We want your pain body to come up so you can go back now with the aid of what we call shamanistic help to reclaim the lost pieces of your soul so you can be healed from that pain body. And so it's going to activate it more highly during that time.
So how are you working these two together? I'm trying to factor in a 30-day month, right? And you're taking 72 hours on a hypersleep, and then you're doing this soul hunting. Is that another 72 hours of sleep, or how do you work the two energies together?
Well, soul hunting is only a couple hours in comparison to hypersleep because it's more physical. It's more dealing with things of the earth, you know. And so we're doing more with linear time, right? But actually, when you go on your, soul hunting, I should say. I don't know if I said hypersleep. But soul hunting is more physical. It's dealing with more of the earth energy, more linear times, 2 hours, right? And hypersleep is more internal. It's more feminine. It's more multi-dimensional time that we're working with. So you sleep for a longer time.
So hunting, look at that.
I hope I answered your question.
No, you did, and you went right before my segue, which was fantastic because David was asking about soul hunting. So if you can kind of give a overview of what soul hunting is.
Man, soul hunting is fantastic. It's a really, all these things is about interdimensional experiences, right? And I think the more a person can know themselves on different levels and different frequencies, the more of an evolved soul you become, right? I mean, if every day you just ate the same food, had the same experiences, well, after a while, life will get kind of boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you came here to really experience all the vastness of life. So when I talk about soul hunting, it's like experiencing another interdimension of yourself. And, again, it's based on thousands of year-old practices, shamanistic practices from Native Americans, where you use a certain drum beat that mimics the beating of your heart, right? Because everything has a rhythm. Everything has a beat. Everything has a time. Everything has a frequency. And this is how all these things are tying in. Talking about time, energy, frequencies, and that type of stuff. Soul hunting now, when you're able to go within yourself, you're blindfolded, and you have, again, it's done with the moderator. Someone can watch you, make sure you're safe. Someone who knows, how to work with inner dimensions, as myself. And, we play a certain type of music, and we teach you a certain type of breath that you do, which will change your brain pattern to be more receptive to go within. And then you just have this vast experience where you're dancing, you're actually calling on these animal frequencies. And you become the animal. You become the dance of the animal to go in to retrieve these lost pieces of yourself. And how you know you still have a lost piece of yourself if you had a traumatic experience and you still can remember that experience like if it was yesterday. That means a piece of your soul is still fragmented in that point in time, in that inner dimension of time. You can still remember, you can still recall it, you still can have the smell of what happened, you can even see what clothes you had on when it happened. That means a piece of your soul is lost in that time. And I'll give you an example. When you have something happen to you that's very traumatic, what your soul does, so it can cope, because all the soul knows is love, peace, joy, harmony. So the soul can stay with you. It actually leaves your body when you're going through a traumatic state. It leaves it. And it comes back to you later. But what happens is a piece of your soul is still locked into that time frequency. So what happens is you go back into that time sequence with a particular breath, this particular dance, and you go back and reclaim it. Now, people have come back, even myself, after experiencing my first soul hunting. I felt renewed, I felt energized, I felt whole again. It really felt like I had reclaimed a piece of myself, and also the memory of the traumatic event wasn't even as 75, it wasn't even that severe anymore. I didn't even have that same activation in myself after experiencing it. It was just like telling a story like you just saw a movie or something. It's, oh yeah, I saw that movie and you didn't have any reaction. Well, before I couldn't tell the story without having an emotional reaction.
So
it empowers you. You know, that's been my experience. That's the experience of other people who have had it as well. And also, again, you're traveling interdimensionally.
So
you
with
get information. You know, it enhances your creativity, your liveliness. It can just change your whole direction where you're going in life.
So does the soul hunting, is that something that you also kind of need a coach or someone to guide you with when you're first starting off, or no?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's a lot of things to take in consideration when somebody's activating their pain body. Sometimes a person can go in a dark place and it's hard to come back out of it. I mean, I even tell anybody, if you've gone through any traumatic event, even actors or actresses who have to reenact traumatic events, it's important that they recapture themselves back from that experience by doing the soul hunting. I mean, look at the guy who played the Joker. I mean, he went into a real dark place and he never made it back out. His soul was still locked into that frequency because he had to become that to play the part. I mean, even look at Christopher Reeve. I mean, he played a paraplegic, and then shortly after he became a paraplegic in real life. So it's important that you know how to, kind of dip into these places and dip out. Don't stay too long. And the soul hunting is a very good way to reclaim your emotional state from traumatic experiences rather than having the traumatic experience overtake you.
My high school English teacher, Mr. LeBlanc, who helped me develop my love of literature and who supported me outside the classroom. Insurance proudly honors America.
So how long was the time?
A coach is there to help guide you, bring you back, help you so you don't get stuck in that frequency.
That makes sense. What was the time frame between doing a hypersleep versus a soul hunting? Was it years later, or did you set the intention at the beginning of the month that for the new moon I'm going to do the hypersleep, and then for the full moon I'm going to do a soul hunting? And for my first part of the question, the second part is, do you incorporate them both more so now to go together?
Well, I mean, they have to be done at two different times, because the moon is at two different times. But the whole thing about it, I went into soul hunting first, and then after that, I went into hypersleep. And the only reason why is because soul hunting cleared me emotionally to have a better hypersleep. So I wasn't having nightmares. I wasn't going to some dark place, because your soul wants to work out what's happened to you, so you can so you can be whole and complete, which is my definition of integrity, by the way. It's not about right or wrong, doing what's right, what's wrong. My definition of integrity is being whole and complete, however that looks like. So, having a soul hunting was important for me because I just wanted to gain more spiritual or soul power, if that makes sense. Which helped me to have a better hypersleep.
Okay, so now that actually begs another question, because I can only imagine that if a person just not blindly, after listening to this podcast, hopefully, but let's just say they are really interested in doing a hypersleep, would you propose that it's more ideal to do a soul hunting beforehand? Because you can go into a hypersleep and get into a very different space that you're not prepared for, and then you might write that off of, I'll never do hypersleep again.
Exactly. You know, and that's why I always suggest when we first do your first hypersleep, it's good to have a coach with you. A hypersleep coach. So that's to give you the ground rules, let you know what to do if that happens. I mean, it's some details and teaching that needs to go along. So you can have a really successful hypersleep. You know, so I'm not saying that, you know, you need a soul hunting first, but you definitely need to ground rules of hypersleep before engaging in 72 hours, you know, hypersleep. I mean, people go to sleep, you know, 12, 24 hours, that's good, but then when you go into the deeper days, you definitely need some ground rules and some guidance. And again, I mean, if you have had, you know, some people haven't had a lot of real traumatic events or they work them out, you know, but if someone's really having a serious traumatic event that occurred to them in life and they haven't quite gotten over it, and how you know you haven't gotten over it, because every time you think about it, you become teary-eyed, you start to cry, you start to, you know, this thing overtakes you, then that's a good sign that, you know, okay, let's do a soul hunting first before you engage in hypersleep. Because you need to clear your emotional body.
So when you've gone to these events in the past, were there two separate rooms? And the reason why I ask is, off camera, we were talking about here in Atlanta, we have the Ignatius House. And what that is a place where people go to have quiet time. So there's no interference, no distractions, there's no electronics or anything. And it's usually, like you mentioned, from a Friday to a Sunday. And what happens is, let's just say 50 people go. 40 people would leave either mid-Saturday or mid-Saturday evening, just because they haven't been used to that much quiet and their brain doesn't know how to function with that. But those that actually stay until Sunday, they usually have a huge breakthrough. So what you're saying, potentially, because you don't know what people are bringing to the table when they go to that, do you have, or have you experienced instances where a person may get out of a hypersleep and can't go back to sleep, maybe that first 24 hours, and then they either ultimately leave? Or do you have a place where you can introduce soul hunting for them to still have a good experience?
Well, the people who go into hypersleep and they have a hard time going back to sleep or whatever, we show you certain techniques that you can try to, you know, talk to yourself to get you to go back to sleep, right? Because it's really just your mind that's talking to you, that's keeping you awake anyway. And once you get over that barrier, then the body just succumbs to the rest.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone that comes in first, we do a thorough interview. I want to find out, you know, we set your intentions together. You know, we want to find out, you know, what do you want to get out of it? And I ask you serious questions. Are you on medications? Are you getting followed by a psychiatrist? These things are very important. You know, because if a person is being followed by a psychiatrist, I would need a release from a psychiatrist before they would enter into these type of things. Because when you're starting to know yourself as something other than yourself, and if you're not strong emotionally, you may not be prepared to go into these type of different realms or different aspects aspects of yourself. I'll give you an example. I met a woman in Jamaica. She was one of my clients, and I explained to her certain things what she was going to experience, by having a session with me, but she wasn't fully prepared for it. And come to find out, she wasn't forthright about telling me that she was being followed by a psychiatrist. And so she didn't have a good experience, need to say. So these are something that, everybody, I wouldn't just say, okay, you can come on the bandwagon and join us to have a hypersleep or a soul hunting. You just really have to be ready to be prepared to what meets you. And I'm like a birthing coach, right? I'm here to say, okay, you can push through it, just follow my guidance and you'll get through it. And they do get through it. I've done this all over the world, internationally, with people. And people have come out of it very successful, but you have to, that's why I say it's good to have a coach for these things in the beginning, because you are traveling interdimensionally. You are traveling, and you may encounter something that maybe your mind may not be ready to see. It's almost like when people do ayahuasca, it's the same thing. Some people have had serious breakdowns sometimes from doing ayahuasca because they just wasn't prepared mentally to receive what the universe is showing them. But if they stuck with it and stayed strong, they will have a breakthrough. That's one thing that we promise you, you will have a breakthrough.
No, I really like that. When you were talking, it made me think of John Asheroff, I believe his name is. He was in The Secret, and then I think you know where I'm going with this. A couple of years ago, he was under fire because some people had died at a sweat lodge that he had, and it sounds like, lessons learned, obviously, but people just, they weren't prepared for that. Like, they could have been couch potatoes their whole life, and then they go to a sweat lodge. So it's good that you actually set the intention or set their expectation to let them know, hey, is this a good, is this good for me right now at this moment? I guess that would be the next question with hypersleep or soul hunting. Someone like me or David, we would jump right in, just based off our experience and the tools we may have. But is there a hypersleep or soul hunting light where a person may not do it for the 72 hours and still get some type of output from it?
Yes, of course. I mean, because you go to sleep every night. But then there are some people who can't sleep at night. Their mind is so strung on the day's events that their brain doesn't let them sleep. So these people, we'll do some coaching, kind of ease yourself into it a little bit and see what happens. And what it is just an allowing. It's like a trusting of what is. I think if you get anything out of these events, from soul hunting or hypersleeping, you're really learning to allow what is. Like really allow the greater intelligence really guide you, and you're given into that. Because sometimes, we try to be in control of everything, right? Our life, all of our things, but we have to admit that we have a very, very small percentage of what we fully have control over. I mean, case in point, right now, if all the oxygen got sucked out of the air right now, most of us will have only 3 minutes to survive on this planet. I mean, so we don't even have enough knowledge and intelligence to expand our life for the next 3 minutes. So So it's like when I talk to people in the coaching comes from really just allowing and just accepting what is. Like you're giving into something that's occurring. And sometimes people realize that something is occurring outside of themselves and they never had that experience before. Sometimes they get a little freaked out. You understand?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that you're just really just becoming more open and more open to the greater vastness of yourself. And sometimes people are not ready to perceive that reality, even though it is the reality, but they're not ready to perceive it. So I would say that would be the only thing that really kind of might become a hindrance to people. So what I like to do is like interview people, talk to them and say, well, what do you want to get out of this? You know, are you being followed by a psychiatrist? Are you under some heavy narcotics? Are you taking some antipsychotics? Because I think people like that may not be ready to really enter into a soul hunting or even maybe a hypersleep.
I like that as a takeaway.
Unless they're ready to become, what you say, accountable, fully accountable for themselves and what happened. And that's a whole other, level of a conversation.
So would it be something, would a hypersleep be something similar to, and I've never done this before, just, I've heard of people that have done it, but when people have done like peyote and gone on like vision quests, is it something in that same kind of neighborhood?
Yeah, because you're gaining access into a deeper level of yourself.
Yeah.
That's all. And it's really not nothing so, serious or mysterious or nothing like that. It's just, where are you at consciously? I think people who are drawn to hypersleep and soul hunting are people who are looking for a deeper consciousness of themselves. So, it may not be, like you say, the person who, watching TV all day long and believe that the world is a certain way when they come to find out that, hey, there are other beings and things that's out there that we can't see.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, just to get scientific, you can't see germs, but they exist. They've proven that they exist.
Yeah.
So, germs exist. There's other beings and entities that your naked eye won't see that exist. And a person may come into that type of situation when they go into soul hunting or even a hypersleep.
Yeah.
Because sleep sometimes feels like you're right there. Your whole being is right there in wherever you are, whatever you're seeing. It's like you're not in this realm anymore. But it's very powerful, and it definitely will help a person raise their consciousness. So I really recommend anyone who wants to try, don't be afraid, and that's the thing, you have to be creative. Don't be afraid, but just investigate it.
I'm anxiously awaiting my second one. I mean, the new moon's coming up, and the first one was so great, and I didn't even really notice until other people were just talking about how different I was. Right? It was like, I don't drink coffee or anything, and it was just like I was on a whole nother level. Like I was really animated, and even though I didn't do the 72 hours, but I did it for 20 hours, and I thought like you did, where like you said, you might not want to sleep the next night, but I mean, I still got a full night's rest. It seemed like my body was really happy that I actually took the time, for me personally, getting away from the computer and such. Like, oh, okay, he's down. Let's take advantage of this while we can. So much so that I've been talking about it ad nauseum, probably to some people, for like 30 days, and I just can't. Wait, I had a really good experience, and I really am looking forward to my next one.
Yeah, me too. I mean, sleep is just a natural part of life, right? So it's like, allowing yourself to have that rest and just allowing yourself to be rejuvenated is just awesome. So I think hypersleep is awesome. I think soul hunting is awesome. I think these are tools that, these inner experiences that we go through that will help us, lift our consciousness and just, have a better way of life. I mean, if you could go outside after a hypersleep and the sun shines like 10 degrees more brighter, and the air smells, at least even 5% much fresher, then it's worth it. That's all I can say.
I agree. We're actually coming up on time.
Wow.
I mean, it kind of flew. It flew today, didn't it? Because
linear time flew today.
Linear time flew today, and I think we just scratched the surface with some of the stuff. I mean, I still have a ton of, probably another hour's worth of questions that we didn't even talk about yet. But in closing, I mean, because you have a wealth of information, and just in hypersleep and soul hunting, but you are also an author, so I'd like for some people to know about your book, your websites where they can get in touch with you, and then potentially to follow up with your upcoming event in soul hunting and hypersleep, I think in the upcoming months. So if you can let people know your contacts, social media, websites where they can get in touch with you, that'd be great.
All right, well, definitely, that can be reached. I prefer people can call me or text me. I'm kind of like hands-on type girl. My number is 678-756-3071. And again, that's 678-756-3071. Or if you want, you can reach out to me with an email. That's info at averypurpose.com. That's info at averypurpose.com. And my book is called Pursuit of the Soul, Allowing Your Perfect Life's Journey by Avery Alexander. It could be purchased on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or even download it to your Kindle. And, it's a book that, just talking about how having stage 4 ovarian cancer was the press. It was the catalyst that allowed my consciousness to start to open up.
When did you write the book? Like, how long ago?
That book was published in 2014. I started writing it like 8 years prior. It was like a work in progress. I always say it's not you writing the book, it's the book writing you.
Yeah.
But it came out in 2014. And it's helped a lot of people, and, it just helps you, have a different perspective on, having this ease, which I would say that this ease, your body's no longer at ease, right? And it happens in your emotional body first. So it's just clearing that, which is really important. Just to stay happy and healthy, because that's what the soul wants to experience. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Stay happy, healthy, and have an awesome life. And these are just some tools where you can gain, a greater access. It's almost like you want to live your life on the 4th floor, or do you want the penthouse view?
Yeah.
So that's just the difference.
Yeah.
That is a great way to close it. I don't want to even top. Step on top of that. Avery, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope everyone really enjoyed it, and stay tuned for future events that we have, and future episodes. We'll have more guests on. And with that, I am Hamza.
I'm David.
And this is Intrinsic Motivation, a homie's perspective.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you next week. See ya.
See ya.